Imagine you've spent like the last 2 years deeply invested in this really gritty, grounded police procedural.
Right, like you know all the characters inside and out.
Exactly. You know the detectives. You understand the city politics.
Yeah.
You've got a feel for the street-level informants, the corrupt officials, all of it.
Yeah.
And you were watching this massive, highly anticipated season finale, just waiting for the big arrest to tie up all the narrative loose ends. And suddenly,
Out of nowhere,
the main suspect rips off their human skin, boards a starship, and the show turns into a sprawling, intergalactic space opera.
Just a total genre shift.
No warning, no foreshadowing, just a total violent collision of genres.
It's completely disorienting. I mean, everything you, as the audience, thought you understood about the fundamental rules of that world just evaporates in an instant. You're like scrambling to figure out what kind of story you're even in anymore.
Exactly. You're completely unmoored. And that exact feeling, that profound sense of narrative whiplash, is what we are looking at today. So welcome to this deep dive. Today, we have this incredibly detailed archival dossier on a really pivotal artifact in tabletop gaming history. We are looking at the October 1980 Advanced Dungeons & Dragons module, Queen of the Demonweb Pits.
Also known as Q1.
Right? Commonly known by its module code, Q1.
And, you know, the mission here isn't just to look at the nostalgia of a 32-page booklet. We are exploring how this single publication forever changed the paradigm of collaborative storytelling.
It really did.
It literally birthed the concept of the multiverse in tabletop gaming, pushing the boundaries of what players thought was possible, and all while tearing its own creators apart in this bitter feud behind the scenes.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we stick with that TV show analogy, Q1 is the exact moment the genre shifted.
Oh, absolutely.
Players had just finished the previous adventure, Vault of the Drow, which was entirely about terrestrial political intrigue among factions of subterranean dark elves.
Right. Very grounded. Well, grounded for fantasy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Q1 just launches them straight into cosmic horror.
What's fascinating here is that before Q1, extra planar travel in Dungeons & Dragons was practically non-existent.
Like, nobody was doing it.
No, I mean, it was just a theoretical concept in the back of a rule book somewhere. Nobody was actually playing it. So this deep dive will uncover not just what happened in this module, but why it forced players and game designers to completely rethink the fundamental limits of imagination.
So let's set the scene based on the dossier. You are playing a character who has just survived this massive subterranean political war in a dark elf city.
Yeah.
You fought hard. You've navigated alliances. You've won.
You're feeling pretty good about yourself.
Right. And at the end of it all, your grand reward is an egg.
Right, but not just any egg.
True.
It's a seamless platinum egg weighing exactly 60 gold pieces. It is essentially this mocking gift from the antagonist of the whole series, the demigoddess Lolth.
The demon queen of spiders.
Exactly. And this egg immediately subverts how players are used to interacting with the fantasy world. Because, you know, you can't just smash this egg with a warhammer. You can't have your thief pick the lock. It completely defies physical interaction.
Which has to be incredibly frustrating for a party of hardened warriors.
Yeah.
Like, I have a sword, why can't I open the egg?
Exactly. The only way to open it is by casting a very specific spell.
Remove curse.
Yes, remove curse.
But according to the notes here, doing that is actually a massive trap.
Oh, it is a brilliant, nasty trap. The moment you cast that spell, the egg opens, but it triggers a secondary curse.
Oh, wow.
If the spellcaster fails to resist it, they get violently sucked into an astral gate.
Just poof, gone.
Yeah. First, the air shifts into what looks like an amber pool, and there's an illusion of the spider goddess Lolth just mocking them. And then it shifts again into a starry mural. You step through that mural and you were just gone. Vanished from the known world.
So the rest of the team is just standing there in a cave, staring at an empty space where their friend used to be.
Pretty much.
So if they want to follow, what do they actually find inside this platinum egg?
Inside, there are 4 specific geometric shapes. There's an iron pyramid, a silver sphere, an 8-pointed bronze star, and a pale blue crystal cube.
Just floating there.
Yeah. Now, these aren't just magical trinkets or typical fantasy loot like a magic sword. They feel distinctly alien. They are the dimensional keys required to navigate the infinite layers of the abyss.
It's like playing a grueling strategic game of chess for 2 years, and right as you're about to corner the king, your opponent tells you the gravity of the board has shifted.
Right.
Like, the board is now sideways, and your knights can only move in straight lines.
Yeah.
Was this sudden genre whiplash intentional to disorient the players?
Oh, absolutely. The disorientation was the entire point of the design. Stepping through that starry mural wasn't just a fun change of scenery for the game.
Yeah.
It was stepping into a reality where the very laws of physics and, more importantly, the laws of magic no longer applied. You aren't in Kansas anymore.
And the reality they step into is the 66th layer of the Abyss, an environment known as the Demonweb Pits. Now, I was reading through the environmental design notes in the dossier, and this place sounds like a non-Euclidean nightmare.
It really is.
The map itself isn't a normal dungeon layout with square rooms and straight hallways. It's a chaotic, interwoven Mobius strip.
And the origin of that map design is one of the most infamous stories in gaming history.
Oh, the towel thing.
Yes. The art director at TSR, a man named Dave Sutherland, famously got the inspiration for this mind-bending layout by looking at the woven pattern of a bathroom hand towel.
Wait, a bathroom hand towel? Seriously?
Seriously, he was looking at how the threads looped over and under one another in this complex interlocking grid. It's this brilliant flash of everyday inspiration turned into environmental terror.
That is so weird, but kind of genius.
Taz translated to a game map, it meant the pathways players walked on were constantly overlapping, weaving above and below each other in this endless void.
And the material of the path itself isn't stone or dirt, right? I mean, it's pretty gruesome.
No, it's horrifying. The very path the characters walk on is made of screaming, tortured souls pressing against an invisible barrier right under their feet.
Just a casual stroll on the damned.
Right. And you cannot step off. In the original 1980 rules, stepping off that path into the surrounding fog meant instant, permanent death.
Just instantly. No chance to roll out of the way.
No saving throw, no last-minute rescue. You just cease to exist.
Wow.
Plus, because the pathways overlap, like those threads on the hand towel, you have this constant vertical threat. The environment has a permanent feather fall effect, which alters gravity.
So things fall slowly.
Exactly, which means massive, horrific monsters like giant pedipulpi.
The whip spiders, ugh.
Yeah, these terrifying whip spiders, full-blown demons, they have a 1 in 6 chance of just silently floating down out of the fog onto your party from the path directly above you.
Yeah.
You are never safe. The architecture itself is hostile.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the horror isn't just navigational. The module actually messes with the core mechanics of the player's characters. What happens to their magic?
That was the true terror for experienced players. Because the Abyss is an ultimate nexus of evil and chaos, traditional safety nets are aggressively stripped away.
Like what?
Think about standard fantasy tropes. Summoning spells. They fail entirely unless you are actively trying to summon a demon, which is a terrible idea.
Yeah, probably don't want to do that.
Druidic magic, completely useless because there is no natural flora or fauna to manipulate.
Right, there are no trees in the void.
Exactly. Even attempting to cast a spell to control the weather automatically fails because the Abyss doesn't have weather, it just has void.
Wait, what if someone gets horribly injured by one of those giant spiders? If I'm playing a healer and I cast a regeneration spell on my friend who just lost an arm, what happens?
The spell works, technically. It will heal your hit points and grow the limb back. But because you are drawing magical energy through the Abyss, your arm might regrow as a demonic, scaled, or leathery appendage.
No way.
Yeah, it is pure, unpredictable body horror.
Okay, I have to push back here. Taking away a player's core abilities, like a cleric's literal connection to their god being severed because they are too many dimensions away, or actively mutating their limbs when they try to heal. That feels incredibly punishing.
It does.
Is rule-altering environmental design like this actually a stroke of genius to simulate horror, or does it just generate out-of-character frustration at the table? Because as a player, I'd be furious.
That is a very valid reaction, and honestly, many players were furious. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see the specific game design philosophy at work here.
Okay.
Yes, it was mechanically tedious. Players complained endlessly about constantly cross-referencing rulebooks to see which spells were altered, but that mechanical frustration was meant to hammer home a vital narrative theme.
Which was?
The concept of cosmic insignificance.
Cosmic insignificance.
Think about it. For the past 2 years of this campaign, these players were localized heroes. They saved towns, they defeated regional giants, they conquered a city of dark elves. They felt powerful.
Where they were the big fish.
Exactly. But the Demonweb forced them to realize that Loth's ambitions dwarfed their homeworld. Their entire planet was just a speck to her. And the module made this philosophical concept literal by placing actual doors along the strands of the web.
Right, because this wasn't just a giant boss arena where you walk in and fight the bad guy. This module was shifting the entire hobby away from a very specific style of play. The dossier mentions conventions like Origin 78.
Yes. In the late 70s, at events like Origin 78, the game was highly focused on strict, points-based tournament play. You go into a dungeon, you kill monsters, you get treasure, you tally up your points to see who won. It was very localized and mathematical.
Very structured. But Q1 blew that wide open into the realm of infinite narrative campaigns. Prior to 1980, the creator of the game, Gary Gygax, had written about this concept called the Great Wheel cosmology.
The Great Wheel was this massive idea that there were infinite planes of existence aligned by morality and ethics. You know, planes of pure fire, planes of absolute law, planes of utter chaos.
But before Q1, that was just theoretical lore.
Exactly. Q1 made the multiverse playable. It laid the essential groundwork for massive expansions that came later, like the Manual of the Planes and the hugely popular Planescape setting.
And the players experience this firsthand. As they walk along this web of souls, they find portals on the 4th level. But these portals don't lead to other dungeon rooms. They lead to entirely different alternate realities on the prime material plane, meaning other planets.
The scope expansion is staggering.
The dossier lists a few of these worlds, and they are wild. There's the Night World, which is just a grim warning to the players. It's a planet completely covered in permanent darkness, already conquered by Lolth.
Right.
There's the Frozen Lands, an endless sub-zero mountain range. The Great Ocean, which is this alien aquatic world with yellow skies and pink water. And then there is Karasiti.
Karasiti is particularly fascinating from a literary perspective. It's an entire world ruled by neutral evil elves called Pharisees. And they have a very specific weakness. They are physically burned by the touch of iron.
Which is such a specific detail, because it is a direct homage to Poul Anderson's mid-century sci-fi novel, 3 Hearts and 3 Lions.
Yes.
Imagine this. You've been playing a standard fantasy campaign with knights and dragons for years. You step through a portal, and you suddenly realize your entire world is just one minor thread in a cosmic web. It's like playing a modern video game, and suddenly, the final level drops you into an environment based entirely on the lead developer's favorite sci-fi movie.
Exactly.
The inclusion of Poul Anderson's lore changed the medium because it proved you could synthesize outside fiction into the game's mechanics.
It was blowing the minds of the players. They were grappling with a universe far larger than they ever imagined. But, the great irony of Q1 is that while the universe was infinitely expanding on the table, the actual minds behind the creation of this universe were engaged in a bitter, incredibly petty, creative civil war.
Oh, yeah. The drama behind the scenes of Q1 is legendary, and it reads like a corporate thriller. The authorship of this module is infamously disputed between Gary Gygax, Dave Sutherland, and a TSR executive named Brian Bloom. Now, what was the official story that was fed to the public back in 1980?
So the PR spin at the time was that Gary Gygax, the mastermind behind the whole campaign, simply had writer's block.
He just ran out of ideas.
Right. The company claimed he felt his ideas for the Demonweb were getting too similar to another project he was working on, the Temple of Elemental Evil. So supposedly, he happily handed the reins over to art director Dave Sutherland after hearing that brilliant hand towel mapping idea. It was framed as a friendly, collaborative handoff.
But the dossier outlines the actual truth, which didn't fully come out until decades later. In 2003 and 2006, Gygax publicly revealed a very different, much angrier story.
Oh, he did.
He bluntly stated on message boards, and I quote, "I did not write Q1, nor did I approve of it. They insisted on publishing it against my objections." It turns out the executive Brian Bloom had effectively usurped the project entirely.
It's the classic auteur versus the studio battle, playing out in the early days of tabletop gaming. Bloom and Sutherland took control, which meant the original author lost the finale of his own epic series.
And reading Gygax's lost storyline, I mean, it sounds incredible. It wasn't supposed to just be a direct boss fight where you walk in and hit Lolth with a sword until she dies.
Right, it was much more complex.
It was going to be a complex three-way political proxy war. You had Aklavdra, this highly charismatic dark elf priestess from the previous module, who was trying to summon an entity called the Elder Elemental God.
Yeah.
The players were supposed to be forced to form an uneasy temporary truce with Loth's faction just to stop Aklavdra, resulting in both of these massive evil entities exhausting their power and being banished.
Wait, I'm getting fired up just reading this.
It's intense.
They basically fired the director right before the finale of a massive trilogy. We go from complex factional diplomacy to a straight-up dungeon crawl. Was this just pure corporate overreach by Brian Bloom, or did the fans actually want a giant monster fight instead of political nuance? It's a bit of both, actually, and that's why it's one of RPG history's greatest what-ifs. It was absolutely corporate overreach. I mean, Bloom leveraging his power to get the product out the door.
Sure.
But it also reflects a very real tension in what the gaming community wanted in 1980. Some players loved the heavy, Tolkien-esque political roleplay. Others just wanted to kick down the door and fight a god.
Fair enough.
Sutherland and Bloom won the corporate tug-of-war, and because of that, the nuanced political ending was entirely scrapped. In its place, we got an unapologetic gonzo pulp weirdness climax that deeply divided the fan base.
And pulp weirdness is the perfect way to describe the result of that corporate takeover. Because after you navigate the mists, survive the screaming souls, and walk the hand-towel web, you finally find Loth's lair.
Yes.
And it's not a gothic castle. It's not a dark subterranean cave. It is a colossal, steam-powered mechanical spider ship walking endlessly across an alien desert.
The shift in tone is jarring. The ship is this massive 7-level metallic structure containing 38 keyed encounter rooms,
Right.
and the design is brutal.
How brutal.
Out of those 38 rooms, 26 of them contain monsters actively waiting to attack the party the second they open the door.
It's what modern designers would call a funhouse slaughter map. There's no ecology or logic to why these monsters are living next door to each other. It's just a gauntlet designed to mechanically drain every last resource, spell, and healing potion you have left.
Exactly.
And speaking of draining resources, Room 14, the Hall of Fate. This is one of the most bizarre pieces of trivia in the entire dossier.
Oh, this room.
You walk into this highly mechanical, steam-powered room, and there's just an old man sitting at a table dealing cards from a deck of many things.
Which is wild. The deck of many things is legendary. For anyone unfamiliar, it is a notoriously chaotic, campaign-destroying, magical artifact. You draw a card, and you might gain 3 wishes, or your soul might be instantly sucked into a void forever.
Just completely random.
Placing an item that relies purely on random, absolute luck right at the end of a multi-year epic is a testament to the ruthless, high-stakes, almost punitive design philosophy that Bloom and Sutherland championed.
And then there's the final battle itself. You are fighting Loth, this multiversal demigoddess who rules the abyss. And to fight the players, she doesn't just unleash cosmic magic.
No, she doesn't.
According to the text, she literally has to run over to a control console in the ship and manually flick mechanical switches to summon reinforcements.
It's so funny to picture.
And those reinforcements, they're marble knights that have 6 hit dice.
Right, to put that in context, 6 hit dice means these knights are mechanically equivalent to mid-tier grunts.
Yeah.
The players are vastly overpowered by this point.
Yeah.
It is a completely underwhelming threat from a supposed god. It's such a mundane mechanical trap for a being of infinite chaos.
But the visual representation of all this chaos is striking.
It really is. The aesthetic clash of the writing was brought to life by some of the most iconic Silver Age artists at TSR, and their contrasting styles perfectly mirror the chaotic identity of the module. You had Jim Rosloff doing the cover art, which was very grounded, gritty, and realistic, but inside you had Errol Otis bringing his surreal, almost dreamlike, perverse beauty to the alien denizens.
His stuff is so distinct.
Yeah. You had Jeff D. providing these dynamic, kinetic, comic book style lines. And of course, Dave Sutherland's organic, chaotic cartography binding it all together. The art itself couldn't agree on what genre this was.
So what does this all mean? We have a massive aesthetic and mechanical clash here. A steam-powered robot spider in a fantasy game. At what point does throwing sci-fi steampunk into a Tolkien-esque world completely break the immersion for the player? Or is that exact contradiction what makes a god of chaos actually feel chaotic?
This raises an important question about the cultural era this was born into. This was the 1970s bleeding into 1980. Fantasy wasn't as rigidly codified as it is today.
Sure.
It was heavily influenced by the anything-goes gonzo style of writers like Michael Moorcock, or independent game supplements like the Arduin Grimoire, which freely mixed lasers and wizards. Bringing in a mechanical spider ship proved a vital thematic point. The Abyss operated on an entirely different technological and magical axis than the human world. It wasn't supposed to fit neatly into high fantasy. It was supposed to feel jarring, wrong, and alien.
And it certainly succeeded at that. Wrapping this all up, Q1 has an incredibly polarized legacy. As we've seen from the dossier, it is a messy, mechanically tedious, corporate-compromised adventure that robbed the original creator of his grand finale.
Absolutely.
But despite all of that behind-the-scenes ugliness, it permanently blew the doors off the D&D universe. It took players out of the muddy terrestrial caves of the early modules and threw them violently straight into the infinite, starry void.
And there's a real applicable lesson there, whether you are building a business, writing a story, or just leading a team. Q1 is a testament to how shifting the conceptual boundaries of a project.
Like introducing non-Euclidean rules.
Right, or expanding from a single map to an infinite multiverse. Doing that can entirely redefine what your audience thinks is possible. It might be incredibly messy, and you might alienate some purists, but breaking the established rules is often the only way to expand the horizon of your medium.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over. When you are consuming or creating a massive multi-year narrative, what is ultimately more satisfying to you? Is it a meticulously cohesive, narratively consistent resolution that ties up every single political loose end exactly as you predicted? Or is it a reality-bending, rule-breaking spectacle that completely changes the genre at the very last second? Sometimes the most memorable way to end a grounded police procedural is to put the suspect on a starship and blast off into the unknown.
It certainly guarantees that no one who experienced it will ever forget the finale.
That's for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.